Do you know how to tell whether a person wants your advice? Here is a little known secret. If a person wants your advice, he or she will almost certainly ask. When there's something wrong in other people's lives and the solution appears obvious from the outside, the odds are pretty close to 100% that they don't need your brilliant advice or my brilliant advice. If someone is ruining his life with a bad habit, he already knows. If she needs to leave an abusive partner, she already knows this better than you do or better than I do. They might deny these sorts of realities if we confront them, but they already know as much as they are willing to know. Unless you are very close to someone and have earned the right and possibly the responsibility to intervene, it's not your place to give advice to everybody around you. Contrary to what most people seem to believe, other people are not just sitting around waiting for us to save them with our brilliant advice. Honest. I am more annoyed by unsolicited advice than most people are, simply because I lived with this constant sort of controlling behavior from my father when I was growing up. Even when I was many years into my adult life, he was constantly eager to tell me what I should be doing. In fact, one of the last times I ever saw him, I had to meet with him, this was years ago, briefly in a parking lot to get something from him. I was with him for, I don't know, no more than 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. But he couldn't help touching my clothes to pick off some cat or dog fur that he saw, and to tell me how terrible I looked to go out of the house with fur on me. I was just wearing casual sweats, and I wasn't terribly concerned about fur, especially since I lived with 8 or 9 cats and dogs at the time. It just wasn't a big deal to me, but he wanted to continue his lifelong pattern of telling me everything that was wrong with me and how I should be more like him. And make no mistake about this, giving unsolicited advice is controlling behavior, whether the people realize it or not. People who give such advice might tell you that they're just trying to be helpful, but it's controlling and it's arrogant. It says, I know more than you do, and you should do what I think is right. Most of the time, when you try to tell others what they ought to do, you are wrong about much of what you say, simply because you don't know enough about other people's lives to know all of the details of their situations. When people vent about certain things in their lives, whether it's in person or on social media, they're not necessarily looking for you to solve their problems. They are looking for some empathy and understanding. And if they want advice, they'll ask. If you're not sure whether they're open to advice, ask. But don't go blindly telling people what they ought to do. That's arrogant and it's ignorant. You might wonder why in the world I'm talking about unsolicited advice in the context of narcissistic abuse, but it's simple. Ever since I started understanding what happened to me in childhood, and I started piecing together the ways in which narcissistic abuse affected my life, I routinely hear from people who try to invalidate the things that happened to me. And those whose unsolicited advice is often just to get over it. There are a lot of people who have no understanding of what some of us live through. Whether your experience is similar to mine or it's totally different. but these people have no understanding of what we live through, and they have absolutely no understanding of the ways in which our lives were changed by the abuse. These people do not understand the process of understanding and healing that many of us have to go through. And because they haven't had to deal with such things, they think we should just be able to ignore the past and move on. They're ignorant about the experiences we've gone through, yet they're arrogant enough to insist that we should just be like them and ignore whatever might have happened in the past. Some of these people have good intentions. Some of these people, though, are in denial about the people who abused us. If you start talking about the abuse you suffered from someone, whether it's a parent or spouse or partner, friend, whatever, some people are not going to want to believe it. Many are going to tell you that your abuser meant well. They're going to tell you that they know this person loved you. Basically, they're ignorant of your experience, but they want you to ignore what you know happened, and they want you to adopt what they believe is true. These sorts of people want to minimize what actually happened to you. And even if they're willing to acknowledge that things happened to you, as you say, they don't understand narcissism, and they don't know how to do anything other than deny that what you suffered was abuse. And some of those who aren't even trying to deny what happened to you are eager to tell you how you should deal with it. They know little or nothing about your life, and they know absolutely nothing about narcissistic abuse, but they're eager to tell you how to deal with the issues you face. If you find yourself realizing that you've suffered abuse, and if you start sharing your experiences with some other people, be prepared for these arrogant and ignorant responses from some. Some people are going to tell you what you ought to do, how you ought to deal with what happened to you. And others are going to minimize your experiences and tell you in one way or another to just get over it. In the 15 years since I started to understand what happened to me as a child, I have shared more and more of my experiences with others. And I've experienced a lot of these sorts of responses. Some well-intentioned people are going to tell you how you can fix whatever issues you're still experiencing in life. They are certainly no. Some people are going to tell you that your abuser really loved you and meant well, so you shouldn't think badly of him. And others just don't understand the effects of abuse and are going to tell you to just get over it, or else self-righteously judge you for being weaker than they are. Don't be surprised by any of this. I'm not going to tell you how to deal with it because I don't know enough about you or your situation to have advice for you. And let's be honest, if you are going through the difficult process of understanding what happened to you, you probably don't need or want advice. You're probably just needing someone to hear what happened to you and to empathize with you. You probably need someone to care enough to acknowledge what you've experienced. More than anything, you probably just need to be heard. You probably just need to be able to share a truth that's been bottled up and suppressed inside your mind and heart for many years. There are times in my life when I genuinely want and need advice. But I usually find that people don't have advice for me about things that I haven't figured out, but they're eager to give me advice about things that they don't understand. They're eager to give me advice about things that are obvious. But when I need advice about something that I haven't yet figured out, they're dead silent. I can't tell you how to handle this when other people do it to you. But I do want to warn you that it's likely to happen. When you do ask someone for advice, you're probably best getting it from a qualified professional, like from a therapist, or at least from people who've experienced something similar. The last thing you need is some ignorant person trying to control you by saying, in one form or another, just get over it.